Shalom, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. Jonathan, the code searcher, and on this channel, we talk about codes. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about transcending the boundaries of science and spirituality. I got a couple of presentations I want to show you. First, with did you know that your genetics actually has the name of the creator in it? Let me just share this with you, and then we're going to move on to another video from Gregg Braden that I think is amazing. Stay tuned. Let's watch this.
In the midst of every single atom that you have, in your genetic code, it's a double helix that right turns, and there are these sulfur bridges in the midst of every single atom that you have that has a code. And what happens is every 10 there's a bridge, and then every 5 there's a bridge, and then every 6 there's a bridge, and then every 5 there's a bridge, and then it repeats over and over and over and over again. And that's a part of your DNA, that's a part of my DNA. This is something that we just recently discovered, this whole thing of 10, 5, 6, 5. Well, what is amazing is with the numbers actually correspond with Jewish letters. The number, if you notice that there's 2 number 5s, both of those are H's. And then if you'll notice that the number 10 is a Y and the number 6 is a W, it's how the Jews spell Yahweh. And God's name is literally written in your DNA. Okay, well, you see how there's 2 number 5s and there's 2 H's. The word for both of those is behold, behold. The symbol for the Y is a hand, and the symbol for the W is a nail. The name Yahweh means behold the nails in my hands. In your
Amazing, huh? Well, Gregg Braden has something very similar in a video that I found by him. And by the way, I'm trying to make contact with this brother, you guys. I think he would be amazing to collaborate with because of the cross-pollination of our channels. And also that I believe that it's a great place to merge and to build a bridge because he is an author, a scientist, and a researcher that has a lot of knowledge that bridges the gap between his forte and mine. I believe that there's a lot of Hebrews that are a part of his channel and those that follow him. So I want to connect our channels together. And I found this video from him that I find very fascinating. It's along the same line. And so I want to share that with you. Let's watch this together.
There is a message in our DNA. It exists. It's been revealed, it's been read, it's been translated, and by following the instructions left to us in some of our most ancient and cherished traditions, we can now literally read the code of life is the letters of ancient alphabets. And when we do so, our genetic code becomes words, and the words become sentences. Although you may have always sensed that we're here on purpose, and that whoever, whatever is responsible for our being here may have left something hidden for us, deep in the mystery of our lives long ago. You may be surprised at just how powerfully you're affected by the clarity of the message you're about to hear, the message that lives in every cell of your body. Well, as you can imagine, the emotional experience that goes along with researching this kind of information has had a tremendously profound and powerful effect on me personally. I've always believed that we are here on purpose, that we're an intentional species, that we're a product of an intentional creation that began long ago. And while I confess I've never fully understood the how or the why of our existence, I am convinced beyond any reasonable doubt. When I see the complexity of life, and the complexity of the DNA in our bodies, I know that we're here by design. Now, the precise details of how this is done, I've described in the book, The God Code. That's beyond the scope of everything that we're going to do here today. What I'd like for you to know is those details are available. We're going to do this at a very high level. We're going to do it very simply. All we're doing is now matching the numbers that we've converted the elements of life into to the letters of the ancient alphabets. And when we do that, the modern element hydrogen becomes the Hebrew.
All right, so this is very similar to what we just saw in the DNA structure. And what Gregg is presenting here is the elements involved, you guys. The reason I'm wanting to integrate Gregg Braden into these videos is because I believe he's on a very special path, you guys. I've already got him in the codes, and I believe he has a special purpose, and he bridges a gap between spirituality and science. And I think what he brings to the table is very important. So please go and subscribe to his channel, buy his book, and and get connected with him, because I believe that he's going to play a major role here in the future. This guy is on the, I don't think he understands. He might know who he is, but I don't think he understands who he is when it comes to humanity and what he brings to the table. I believe that the Creator is going to use him in a mighty way in his journey. So he brings some really interesting points to the channel, to the table.
Hebrew letter Yud, or Y. The element nitrogen becomes the Hebrew letter He, or H. The element of oxygen becomes the Hebrew letter V,
This is
or
different than
Vav.
the DNA code here.
The modern element carbon becomes G, or Gimel. All we've done is we've treated the modern elements as we would with gematria, and we've treated the ancient letters as we would with science. We're giving both ways of knowing the same consideration. When we do that, we can now apply these letters.
How amazing is that, you guys, that our Creator is so multifaceted that he puts his signature on every facet. This is amazing to me, and that's why I wanted to share this with you.
To the bases of our DNA, and here's what happens. Here's what happens. Every place we see a hydrogen, it becomes a Y. Every place we see a nitrogen, it becomes an H. Every place we see an oxygen, it becomes a V. Every place we see carbon, it becomes a G. And this is for the first layer, the first level of the message in our cells. So we're converting the elements into numbers. We're converting the numbers into letters. And when we do that, the strand of DNA literally becomes different combinations of those letters for the first layer in the cells of our bodies. Different combinations of the letters Y, H, V, G. Y, H, V, G. What does it mean? What does it mean? Well, the first layer, and this is the key, the first layer to the introduction in the cells of our bodies literally translates into only two words, two very powerful, very potent words. YHVG. YH literally translates into English, and you already know this because we spoke about it, it's the ancient name of God, or the word eternal. YH, Yah, translates to the word God, eternal.
Yeah. God eternal. Yeah. This is what he's found in the elements, you guys. And this is why I say this is multifaceted. It's not just about the letters encoded in your DNA, but even the elements, you guys. Even the yellows. Our Father is so awesome that he's thought of every detail to put his signature. This is uber fascinating to me.
VG or VG, GV in the Hebrew traditions, translates literally into the words within the body. Within the body. When you put these together, what we find is that the first layer of the message in the cells of all life, the first layer of the message in the cells of your body literally translates into the English words, God eternal within the body. God eternal within the body. It doesn't say who God is or where God has come from or how the message even got there. It simply says that whatever you consider to be that force, the creative force that seeded an entire universe and our world and our bodies, that force resides within you, within every cell of your body. When we're looking at the DNA bases, they are literally different combinations of these words. God eternal within the body. God eternal within the body. Whether we're speaking about an amoeba or a blade of grass or the complexity of a human body, we are literally made of different combinations. If you translate the chemical codes into the alphabets, different combinations of God eternal within the body.
Can you wrap your brain around that? Every living thing, this is encoded there. He's put his signature there. God eternal in the body. Do you understand what is going on here? This is amazing.
The odds of randomly forming this kind of information, a meaningful four-letter word from the alphabets, The Hebrew language is about 0.00042%, or about 1 in 234,256. I asked myself this question because we all know if you take enough letters, different combinations from a phone book or War and Peace or the Da Vinci Code, the book of your choice, eventually you're going to get letters that fall together and mean something. So what are the chances that this is a fluke? What are the chances that these letters just happen to be, the 4 elements of life just happen to be exactly the numbers that link to the 4 letters in the Hebrew alphabet that just happen to say exactly God eternal within the body?
There is no fluke to this, you guys. There's no coincidence, and there's no coinkydinks when it comes to the Creator. All these things have a meaning, and they all have purpose, and they all scream that there is a Creator. You understand this? This is why it's very imperative to blend these 2 niches here. This niche between scientific and the spiritual. Okay, and that's kind of where I fall on my channel here. I'm not neither a Christian nor am I a Jew, so to speak. I fall in between in the messianic niche. But in that place, we understand these things. We see these things very clearly and see that there's no way that there's not a Creator. This is very clear that we are here for a purpose, and everything is encoded. Everything is encoded, you guys. Everything in creation.
Odds of that happening are about 1 in 234,256. I spoke with some statistician friends of mine, and I asked them, I said, what do those numbers mean? What does that number mean? Because I thought maybe the odds would be, 1 in a bajillion, or something like that. And they said, well, Greg, you have to consider this is a very, very short message. It's only 2 words, God eternal.
You guys, and the reason I bring this forward to you, and I know you may not like when I interrupt the presenter, is the love language being spoken here. I've newly discovered Greg and been going through his videos and see that he's virtually speaking my love language, the mathematical and the probabilities and the statistics and the encoding is all my love language. And so I'm drawn to that, and I feel very compelled to collaborate with this guy and bring some of this information forth, because I think there's something big here. I really do. And I think this is a turning point in code searching.
Within the body. As we go deeper into the code and the sentences become longer, those odds will increase astronomically. They said, what's important about this? Those aren't bad odds, 1 in 234,256, but they take on even greater significance when we consider, number 1, that it's these and only these 4 letters of the Hebrew language that correspond to the only 4 elements that create the DNA through that mathematic link, number 1. And number 2, it's not that we just...
By the way, have you ever looked at the precision and the symmetry of a DNA strand, what you are made of? You think this was created by the Big Bang? You think this was just accident, that you just evolved from a monkey? Absolutely not. The structure is perfect. It's perfect in every way. Now, granted, there are some defects in some DNA, and you see DNA defects in people, but the point of that is the intricacy, the mathematic precision of this double helix is not an accident. There's no way this is an accident. And this is like throwing a pebble into a pond where you see these ripples of creation, this perfection in creation. All of creation, all of plant life, all of the animals and man, you see this fingerprint of a creator. I came from a place of skepticism, you guys. I'm not coming from a place of dogmatic, hardcore religious, okay? I came from a place where I was told that growing up there was a Santa Claus, and there was a Easter bunny, right? And there was a Jesus, right? And I had to search those things out to prove to myself whether these things were true, right? And here I am now on the molecular level, seeing the fingerprint of a creator. And this is why I do this. This is why it's important. The codes in itself, the encryption in this ancient text proves it's a fingerprint of the creator.
Made a couple of words, when you put the words together, there's a context. It means something, so that the message itself. Now, we began this project with the Hebrew language because it lends itself to this process through Kabbalah and through the gematria that's been so well preserved. When we researched and applied these same principles, what we found is that this works in other languages as well. It definitely works in ancient Arabic as well. It looks like it works in Sanskrit as well. So what we're finding is that in the languages that cement the spiritual traditions for well over half the world's population, the message reads precisely the same no matter what language you translate it into within these ancient languages. These root or core languages is what they're called. So now when we look at our cells, rather than seeing the sticky, gooey, protoplasmic stuff that somehow magically creates life, what we're looking at is a library. And within that library, those 46 chromosomes we can actually think of now as books. And the long strands of DNA that make up each chapter in each book, we know, are made of the shorter strands that we call genes, that are the paragraphs and the sentences. And the highest level, the very first, the introductory level, the message from the first day of our existence, reads the same for all of those cells. It literally says, God eternal within the body. God eternal within the body. It's almost as if you were a life form from another world and you suddenly found yourself here on Earth and you said, I'd like to know about these Earth creatures. What is their history? Where do they come from? I'd like to read the book of their record that they carry within the bodies themselves. And they opened one of our cells, this is what they would find. That this force, this creative force responsible for the entire universe, if we're to believe the text, and for our bodies, it literally lives inside of us as well. God within the body. It doesn't say God's out there somewhere. It says that God resides within us and works through us in this way. The ancient Hebrew texts teach that this name, the divine name that we find in the cells of all life, the very name that was removed over 6,800 times.
He's talking about Yod He Vav He. Man, can I just add to what he just said there? That it points to a creator, you guys. It all points to a creator. And it doesn't matter what language that you look at this in. It all points to a creator. Yod He Vav He.
From the original text is a name that is to be spoken only in one place, in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. And I found this very interesting, because if in fact, if we're to believe the texts, and God had a conversation with Moses almost 4,000 years ago, and in that conversation revealed a personal name that we would know God by in this world, my question is, why wouldn't we be able to use that name all the time? Why wouldn't we be able to call to the creative essence that lives in the cells of our bodies and is responsible for life as we know it, in our prayers and in our meditations and in times of need as well as in times of joy? Well, I began speaking with the scholars, the religious scholars, and many of the rabbis and the Hebrew scholars, and asking them this question. And more often than not, they would refer me to a passage, one passage in Deuteronomy, chapter 12, verse 5. It says that the place that God will choose to place his name is in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. And they interpret that to mean that that is the only place the name should be spoken on the one hand, while on the other hand, only a few more lines down, what we find is that God actually says that this is the name, that his name is the name to be used. It's the name to be used, and that it is dishonoring to use any other name in our prayers. So we have a little bit, I'm sharing this because I want you to be aware, the differences of opinion in terms of precisely how and when this name is to be.
And you guys, by the way, I don't believe that the name is supposed to be used in the temple only. I think the text interprets in the sense that in the temple, we are only supposed to use his name and no other name. But we can use his name outside of the temple as well. I think this is where a point where Greg may be confused. It's not limited to the temple, because the Bible in several places talks about calling upon the name. But in the temple, we are to only use his name. We cannot call on other gods in the temple. Okay, so where is the temple now? It's you in your body, right? So, but in the text, it's talking about the physical temple in Jerusalem. We could not call on any other god other but him. That is what it says.
Be used. The name was believed to be so sacred that if we did utter the name in the presence of one another, we were to do it with our mouths closed, so that the essence of the name would never escape our bodies. It's called the swallowing of the name. So when I asked the scholars and the rabbis where this information actually comes from, who said that the name of God that was revealed to Moses on Sinai is a name that we should never share among ourselves? And the differences in the answers told me that this is an artifact in human interpretation.
And this is one of the reasons why I would like to get with Greg on this, because my interpretation and my understanding, especially what I see in the codes and in the plain text, and specifically in the prophets, I don't come away with the same understanding. It is a sacred name, but it is supposed to be for the believers and for the children of Israel. Again, my interpretation of the children of Israel is not just the Jews. We're talking about the exponential growth of 7.2 million Israelis over 2,730 years is in the hundreds of billions of people. Okay, so that means that these people are all over every country. That's why the scriptures say that they were scattered to the four corners of the earth. They're in every country. Okay. We're supposed to call on his name, especially in the time of distress, in the time of tribulation. It's not supposed to be hidden. This name is not supposed to be hidden, you guys. That's a Jewish tradition. And it was because they believed that the name was so holy, we couldn't utter the name. But I think, and I believe, fervently believe, because of what I've seen myself and the power of his name, that's not the case. We are supposed to call upon his name.
In the original texts, nowhere do we find the instructions that say we should never say this name among ourselves. So I began to ask the question, what if there's another meaning as to why this name isn't to be spoken? What if maybe there is a hidden meaning, and what if these instructions are literal? Is it possible that there is a special way that this ancient name of God is to be shared in our world? Maybe it's not to be spoken the way we would speak a common name. Maybe it's to be shared in another way, perhaps intoned or sung, as many of these ancient names were. Well, to answer this question, we've got to look at the power of our language and the way that language is constructed with what we call vowels and consonants. The consonants are the letters that separate one language from another. When you speak to a linguist, those who make their life professions of studying ancient and modern languages, they say that the consonants are actually what they call the Tower of Babel between the languages. They are what divide humankind in terms of the way we share information in our world, on the one hand, while on the other hand, the vowels that we are so familiar with, those vowel sounds, are almost universal across every language. The vowels transcend the barrier between languages. The vowels bridge and unify human language together. So my question is this: could it be that the secret of the divine name, the name that lives in the cells of our bodies, is it possible that the ancient instructions that invite us to refrain from speaking this name in the presence of one another as a common name, maybe what they're saying to us is that rather than saying the name through the consonants that divide, the name is to be intoned or sung through the vowels that unite. Let me say this again. What if there was a way to say the ancient name of God, Yahweh, by using the sounds of the vowels that unite humankind through language, rather than by using the common consonants, YH, VH, that divide us as peoples? What would that sound like? Is it possible the name is actually to be intoned? Well, this is very interesting. It led to some study and the work of a colleague and a dear friend of mine, Mr. Jonathan Goldman, who's a pioneer in psychoacoustic research, the relationship between the power of sound and how that sound affects our brains. Jonathan and I have had many discussions about the power of the name of God, the divine name, what it means in our lives, what it means in our bodies. As we researched this together, Jonathan had found that in the texts themselves, there was actually an ancient code that instructs us in precisely this process, that instructs us to create the divine name by intoning the vowels that unite rather than simply speaking the consonants that divide.
This goes down a deep rabbit trail, you guys. I want to bring you back to one of the 10 commandments that says, "Thou shalt not take the Lord your God his name in vain." And what that means in the Hebrew, you guys, I think the Christian understanding of that is askew, because when you look at it in the Hebrew, it means not to take his name in vain, is to not make his name mean nothing, is what it means. And what has happened to our scriptures, you heard Gregg speak earlier in this presentation that in some 6,000, almost 7,000 places in the Bible, the name has been changed, right? And we call upon the Lord and the God and those things. And every one of those places, it is Yod He Vav He that is in the text. So this is very powerful. We're not supposed to hide his name. We're not supposed to not use his name. We're supposed to call upon his name. There are several hundred scriptures, you guys, that say that very thing, that his name is powerful, that his name is above all names, and that we're supposed to call upon his name. So it contradicts what you might see in the Jewish tradition, that they hide the name. I can't find that anywhere in the text that we're supposed to hide the name. We're supposed to call upon his name. We're supposed to have a divine connection to his name. He's our Father.
Well, what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you what those vowel sounds are so that you know what you're hearing, and then share with you the actual sound as Jonathan recreates with his voice this intonation of the divine name, the ancient name of God. The vowel sounds are pure vowel sounds and may sound a little different than the way we typically think of vowels. In the texts, there is a specific order. This is the code, this is the formula that the ancients said, when you share the divine name of God among the people of this world, this is the way that that sound, that name is to be shared. So I'm going to state the vowel sounds and see if you can hear the name Yahweh in these pure vowel sounds, because they essentially come across as E, Ah, U, A, E. The vowels E, Ah, U, A, E. And when we create those together as an intonation, it literally becomes Yahweh. can hear Yahweh.
Here's one other place where I disagree with his assessment of the facts here. I don't believe that it's Yahweh. However, it is pronounceable that way, that these four letters have a handful of way of pronouncing. But if you look at the Jewish names like Jeremiah, Isaiah, Nehemiah, and many other Hebrew names that has the ayah or ayah in the name, it's easily deduced that you can, because the fact that the J is not a factor here. It's Yah, not Jah. It's not Jehovah. It's more likely that it's Yahovah or Yahuwah. Now, Yahweh is another word here that you know some people pronounce his name that way, and I'm not saying it's wrong because I believe that the name of the Creator is very dynamic. But I think it's more accurate to be Yahovah or Yahuwah is his name. Yod He Vav He is the letters we're talking about.
Yahweh. So the sound that you hear next will be one iteration of this intonation of the ancient name. I'll invite you just to sit back and listen and feel how this sound feels in your body.
Have any of you understood that frequency has a really big force in this whole thing? The frequency of sound has a big is a big player in creation. I think that's what he's bringing to the table here. The frequency of his name.
And what you have just heard may be the first time in a very long time that this sound, the ancient name of God, has been intoned in the way that it was intended. Once again, rather than speaking it through the consonants that divide as a common word, sharing it, intoning it through the vowels that unite.
You guys go subscribe to Gregg Braden's channel and also buy his book, The God Code. I would like to recommend that. I think this guy's got a hold of something and is on the precipice of something very great. Again, I don't believe that he really understands who he is in Messiah, in the Creator. And I think he's on the brink of something really great. So shout out to Gregg Braden. Go subscribe to his channel. Folks, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. Please help me here. And I want to thank those that have already subscribed. You guys are awesome. The growth here lately has been incredible. And I just want to speak a blessing over you. May the Creator of the universe bless you mightily and prosper you in the name of the Creator, Yeshua HaMashiach. Thank you. See you in the next video.